from each happily ever after, every wish upon a star. Let's break down the movies that shaped who we are, from memory lane to now and everything in between. The most famous of films to the ones we've never seen. Decade by decade, all the times we laughed and cried, and with a little pixie dust, they will all take flight, reliving the feelings, and we're trying our very best. And if they mean the same to you, please be our guest. So hop aboard, we would love to have you as we hang with a certain mouth, the whole gang too. If you love nostalgia stuff, we hope this does the trick. Thanks for joining us as we deep dive the magic.
Hi, and welcome back to the Deep Diving the Magic podcast. I'm KJ.
And I'm Jeffrey. And we are back today with the 66th Disney feature-length film from July the 7th, 1963. It is a film called Summer Magic. Summer Magic is the return of our friend Hayley Mills from Parent Trap and Pollyanna and various other films that we've watched so far. We have the return of Dorothy McGuire, who was the mother in Old Yeller and the mother in The Swiss Family Robinson, and Burl Ives, all the way back from So Dear to My Heart. And he's the snowman in the famous animated Rudolph, which is obviously not a Disney movie, but you can tell by his voice. Would you like to start us off with a synopsis or maybe some opening thoughts about I said So Dear to My Heart. Just kidding. Summer Magic.
We're going back in time, guys.
That's right.
We're doing a further deep dive.
That's right.
Just kidding.
Summer Magic.
So the synopsis of this film is a Bostonian widow moves with her kids to the country. Short and to the point.
Short and to the point.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely are moving to the country. The country is much more of a part of this than Boston is. But do you have any other opening thoughts or any facts before we dive right in?
I thought it was interesting that we're watching another Hayley Mills film and it has a Boston connection.
Yeah, I wonder why they do that.
I think it's her accent.
You think so?
Yeah, because nobody else in the film has her accent.
Maybe, but she's obviously not from Boston.
Actually, this film was, I guess, coined for another actress, and I don't think it was Annette Funicello, but maybe it was.
Well, she's not in it.
Yeah, I think it might have actually been picked out. Technically, I think that's who Disney wanted to do it.
Okay.
But I think she signed, I didn't write it down. I think she signed on to do another film. Actually, it was Annette Funicello because she signed on to do some kind of beach movie at the same time or something. So Hayley Mills was who he cast instead. But it was not technically inspired for her.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, she's been in a handful.
Mm-hmm.
And so has Annette. But anything else before we dive right in? No? All right. Nope. So we start off with the opening credits. There's like a Disney storm happening, so we knocked that out right away. And then there's a song about summer magic. We start off in like a city where we see a lot of nicely dressed people. There's some horses and carriages, and we then meet the characters of the family, and we see that Hayley Mills character, which I believe her name is Nancy, which we'll touch on later, is reading a letter, and there's a boy playing the piano. Mm-hmm. We then learn that the family has to sell the piano because they need the money.
Yep.
And
I thought it was very interesting that none of the three siblings look anything alike, and they all have three distinct haircuts.
Yeah, go ahead and talk about the haircuts before we keep going, because I was going to touch on it later. But go ahead.
The older two kids have normal haircuts, but the youngest kid has the worst haircut in all of the world.
Yeah, it's like if you found a doll in
from the
your
16th century,
in your grandparents
But this kid was walking around with a live haircut of this.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to describe it.
Look at
actually, we're going to put it right here.
Yes, we are.
You're welcome.
So we find out that the mother has recently become a widow, and they have to sell their stuff.
The father probably died because of the kid's haircut.
I mean, that's really rude. They have to sell their stuff, and they have to move to a smaller place. and then the men come for the piano.
Hmm.
I think that like the younger boy is definitely has the hots for Haley Mills' character, but that never really gets fleshed out. But much to the kid's shock, after they take this piano out, they actually bring a different piano in.
Oh, you were talking about the delivery guy?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about her sibling. I was like, I did not get
No,
that.
no, 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 no. Like the delivery
Yes,
guy.
so the
Like,
delivery guy, yes, I think
yeah,
that
his
is
dad could get
definitely,
him mad at him or whatever.
yeah.
So much to the kid's shock, they actually replaced the piano with a different piano,
Hmm.
and this piano can play on its own,
Yeah, what did they call it? I
which
feel
is the
like I
kind of
wrote
piano that
something
I would
about
be
it.
able to play good at it because it plays on its own.
Oh, a player's
Yep.
piano. I'd never heard of a player's piano.
Mm.
And then he said, for people that are moving, we put this on for them. And then he put like a scroll in and hooked it up, and then it started playing.
Yep.
Well, they started playing
Yep.
it with
They
their
play a
feet.
song that they actually sing a fun song about flittering.
Yeah.
Flittering. So then just at the same time, the mother comes back. And she says that she just came from the lawyer's house and it doesn't look good. They actually have less money than they had thought they had
Hmm.
because the stocks are worthless. So like
Hmm.
basically the deceased father had put some money into some stocks and they're not even worth the paper that they're on. That's what they said. So we learned that they have $50 a month to live on. So that they
I
can,
hate when films do that because then I'm like, how does anybody live on that? But like during that time, it probably was actually quite a bit of money.
yeah. So
Did you look it up?
no, because I don't know what the time frame is. So
Um, the time frame was Rag. When was Rag? I'll look it up
I don't know. Yeah, go ahead
because
and
it
look
did
it
say it was like Boston and Rag because it said time Rag.
up. So for $50 a month that they had to live on, which means that they actually can't even afford the small little place in Boston that they were trying to, because as we all know now, Boston is quite expensive to live in. But at the same time, Nancy is all excited because she has this letter that she's trying to show her mother. The letter that she was reading in the beginning, and she shows her that there's this dream yellow house that they saw one time when they were on vacation in the country in Maine, in that she wrote to the caretaker and the owner of the house, and it's still vacant, and it can be rented for as little as $60 a year.
Hmm.
Um, so she's all excited. The mother's like, your father always wanted to live in the country. So I guess that's what's happening. The other boys are kind of upset about it, but they're moving to Beulah, Maine. Um,
Have you ever been to Beulah?
I don't even know if Beulah, Maine exists, but I never heard of it before. Um, and then after it gets announced, Nancy already has a song prepared for it. So they cut into song, and then it cuts to them on a train to the country. They pull up to like a quaint little town. It's exactly what you think it would be. And then they arrive at this beautiful new home, which is way too big for $60 a year. Speaking of that, did we figure out the time frame of things?
No, because when I looked up Rag, it was saying it was the 1970s, and obviously that's not
Well,
correct.
that's after this movie came out. So either way, so there's this house, this yellow house in Beulah, Maine, that they can live in for $60 a year. So the family's going to move there. This brother's like, "What about my friends?" and blah blah blah. But they're going to do it. So we get to Beulah, Maine, and we get to the front of this yellow house.
Okay, so ragtime maybe. Maybe so it could have been around 1890s to 1910s,
So
which
like
would
the
have
turn of
made
the
more
century.
sense.
Turn of the century. That's why I keep telling you that this film, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but turn of the century, this film, I swear, is the reference
Okay,
and what they based the Carousel of Progress off of. It has to be.
I guess. So let's see, 1890 to 1910. We want to know.
Just what $50 is to now.
So 1890, $50 would have been the equivalent of $1,734.09.
Still can't live off of that. So whatever. So now that we've sidetracked off of that. So long story short, they could live in this house for $60 a year. So once we get to the house, we meet Mr. Popham. Mr. Popham is played by Burl Ives and his very famous Christmas voice. And it's at this point that they have to come clean to Mr. Popham that Nancy very much exaggerated and lied in the letter that she wrote to him about how poor off the family is. She was talking about like how her
rickets.
Yeah, like one of her brothers was sick, one of her brothers was very little or whatever. But he still allows them to stay, and they can figure out money later. Does that make sense? Everything there?
Yep.
That's all there. So that night, the Carey family, Nancy's family, they all sit on the front porch, and Mother sings them songs about summer magic. The brother, whose name is Digby, no, Mr. Popham's son's name is Digby.
Mm-hmm. Gilly is the
Gilly is the brother, yeah. So Digby and Gilly become friends. Digby's trying to teach Gilly how to drive,
mm-hmm.
which means that Gilly ends up driving the car off the road. Here's where the new neighborhood kids are making fun of the youngest boy, whose name is Peter. They're making fun of his clothes and his hair, so he cuts his famous hair. And
it looks so much better.
Oh yeah, I mean, he has a normal haircut now. And then we see Mr. Popham's wife, which is funny because she constantly refers to him as Mr. Popham, even though it's her husband.
Yeah, I was confused about that for a while.
So Popham's wife reveals that Popham actually rented the house out without the actual owner's knowledge.
No, he wouldn't do that.
So Mr. Hamilton is who is the owner, but he's been like making up that like yes, they can live there and that it's okay with Mr. Hamilton, but Mr. Hamilton doesn't know, which becomes like the actual, like, what's the word for it? Like that's the premise of the movie basically now.
Mm-hmm.
Peter in his new clothes and his new haircut, he brings a big fluffy dog. I don't know the dog's name.
Max.
I'm
just kidding. No. His name was Sam.
Oh yeah, Sam. You're right.
But he looked like Max from The Little Mermaid.
Yeah. So that's You're right, welcome. Sam, because it's Sam. Two movies in a row, 2 films in a row. This dog was less savage.
This was not savage Sam. He was like cuddly Sam.
So he brings his big fluffy dog home, which ruins the new wallpaper.
Mm-hmm. And he can scan an entire house or scale an entire house. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I was confused by my notes here. Whatever. I don't know how I got this autocorrect here, but whatever. So then Mrs. Carey, she gets a special delivery letter, mm-hmm. and we find out that their cousin named Julia is coming to stay with them, and the whole family does not sound pleased. Like nobody is pleased. The boys, Nancy, the mother, nobody's pleased, but Julia is coming to stay with them.
Yeah, it sounds like they just got news of a funeral.
Yeah. So, and it's because basically her step parent or her adopted parents can't afford her anymore because they messed up on some kind of gambling thing or something.
Yeah. And I take it as that guy was like the manager of the money, because later they reference Haley's character Nancy, references how that guy also lost her dad's money.
Yeah.
Which is what put them in the situation that they're in.
So
he must have been some kind of finance guy.
Yeah. Makes sense. So they're not pleased, but Julia's coming to visit. They sing a song about Julia and her pink of perfection. And it's at the same time as this that night Peter sneaks the dog into the window. The dog like scales the whole house and crawls into the bedroom window to spend the night in Peter's bed. Mm-hmm. So then the next day, Julia arrives. She's very, very fancy. She's played by the girl from Bon Voyage, the daughter from Bon Voyage.
Looks way different in this one.
Is the daughter or is Julia the cousin in this one? She's way too fancy for this small town. Mm-hmm. But the kids are just making up stories, trying to scare her off, talking about how scary the town is, talking about people breaking in, talking about haunted, talking about all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And then it's about this time that we learn that Julia is going to stay in Peter's room, and Peter has to stay in his mother's room. So of course we know what's going to happen. The dog's going to.
Yeah.
We'll get
As
there.
Peter goes, "No, I can't, Mom.
Yeah.
You don't understand."
So
She's like, "Yeah, you're gonna sleep in my room."
that night, obviously the kids keep trying to scare Nancy, but then she finally gets to sleep. She turns off all the lights, and then we hear all this commotion, and something breaks in her window, and of course it's the dog Sam, who has scaled the house again.
And the bed breaks.
Yep, causes this whole commotion. Sam goes running out. Everybody runs in the room.
He had a big scare.
So, which means that Peter then decides to go sleep in the doghouse with the dog.
Mhm.
And then the next day, Popham is hanging out with Peter, and he's talking. I don't know. He's trying to cheer him up or whatever. Talking about like the town,
Mhm.
and he sings the song about the ugly bug ball, which is just like about how people whatever fall in love with, even if you're ugly and even if you're not popular and stuff.
Mhm.
It's a fun little song.
And bugs don't know that they're ugly.
Yep. And there was a lot of bugs at this part. So then it's at this point where we go back to the Carrie's house, and Julia's being too fancy to take a bath upstairs. She only can take one downstairs. And then it's at this point that the mother realizes that they don't even have enough money to keep fixing up this house. Like,
I thought she took the shower or the bath upstairs.
I thought it was the other way around, but maybe it was. I thought it was not only downstairs.
In my notes, I have up the stairs because
But I thought they were bringing the water from up to down.
No, Osh's daughter was Lolly Joy was helping to
Lolly Joy's Popham's daughter.
Help her bathe in the kitchen. Oh, never mind. So she was bathing in the kitchen rather than lugging kettles of hot water up the stairs.
Correct. So
took a cold bath.
It's at this point that the mother admits that they don't have enough money to keep fixing up this house.
Yeah.
But it's at this point that Popham, Mr. Nice Guy here, he makes up a story that Mr. Hamilton doesn't even want any more of their rent money as long as they continue the honor of his deceased mother by throwing a party for her birthday in October
on Halloween,
and to hang up put a specific picture of her in like a special spot. So he's just like digging. Remembered. He's just like digging his wheels to like make these people stay, which never gets announced why, but whatever. We'll get there. So then Mrs. Popham shows up to finally like she's over this. She's going to tell Mrs. Carey the whole thing because this has gone far enough, and she's a God-fearing lady. But it's at this point that Mr. Popham hears all this, so he like makes a huge commotion and pretends that he has fallen off of a ladder to stop her from blowing his spot. And they throw him in like the bed of the truck to like bring him home.
Call the doctor. Nope. Yeah. I'll be okay. Just take me home.
But so he makes this whole thing, and then they go to church on Sunday, and then Nancy and Julia meet this new school teacher guy.
Mm-hmm.
And they're both like crushing on this new school teacher guy. So they fight over to invite him. No, they decide to invite him to this tea party. Now, this is my first gripe with this
Charles
film.
Bryant.
Charles Bryant.
Yeah.
This is my first gripe with this movie. So there's these two high school girls that are like, ooh, I'm going to mack it to this school teacher dude.
No, it works for the older one because she finished school.
No, she finished like...
Well, supposedly she finished school because she wasn't going to be going to school. So I guess it's okay for her.
So it's just this dude who's just like... Whatever.
Just graduated college.
Gonna a college boy. That's what they kept saying.
Went to Brown.
So
played football.
We'll get there. But either way, like these girls are goo gagaing over this dude who's way too old for them. So the two girls are competing. So whatever, they invite him to like this party. They throw this party.
They invite him before they ask the mom.
Yep. So then they ask the mom. They end up throwing the party. They're like fighting over getting ready. They're just competing for this dude's attention, who's clearly too old for them. They have this game of croquet. They fight over the game of croquet. It made me realize how much I love the game of croquet. So whatever. Clearly, he chooses the girl Julia, who might be of age. Whatever. So Nancy's upset that he chose Julia. But that night they're all sitting on the front porch. And Mr. Popham is singing songs to them, which is actually, I read that it's one of the Sherman Brothers' favorite songs they ever wrote. Did you read that in your notes? So the Sherman Brothers wrote songs for this, and it was like one of their favorite songs was that front porch song. So then after that whole hangout is over, the two girls go up to their bedroom because they're sharing a bedroom, which causes the two of them to get in a fight. They're like throwing clothes all over the place. They're like saying bad names to each other. They're just, being girls that are too young to be with a college dude. And it's at this point that Nancy accidentally tells Julia why her parents left her. She
the adoptive parents.
Yep. So she accidentally like spills the whole thing, which causes Julia to storm out to Miss Carey. And like to like console her. She's all upset. But it's at this point that Miss Carey says that she actually received a letter from Julia's adopted parents saying that they're now financially stable to take her back. They're in a good place. But then instantly Nancy's like, no, I want you to stay. Mm-hmm. And Julia decides to like hug them all and like decide to stay. So she literally went from like hating on these people to like
it was a complete
choosing
180.
to stay. I wrote what a fast change of pace. Like it was just like, nope, I'm one of you all now. Maybe because of the cute guy. Maybe the cute guy. That's
I mean, I'm sure the cute guy helped. Yeah. But at the same time, it was like the mom reassured her that we love you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
she's gonna stay. With her fancy hat that I didn't mention earlier.
But then she stops being like all goody two shoes and basically comes down to earth from the situation.
She's like, I made these clothes. These aren't imported.
Yeah. And she's like, I sewed them all. I have so many patterns. I got them and then she stops herself because she was about to basically step back into her old habits and said, all the patterns are from Paris. We can pick what we want. So that was nice. And then as they walk away, the aunt was looking and basically was like, oh, sisters.
I mean, Haley Mills is only used to playing her own sister, so now she gets to have this other girl's sister.
Yeah,
which is actually funny about Paris, because in Julia's character's Bon Voyage, she like was like all about some dude in Paris, where she didn't want to come back with her parents. So
maybe she got the patterns in that movie
when she was there with the dude who also was a college graduate who didn't believe in love, but that's a whole.
And actually looked very similar to this guy. I mean, they were obviously different people, but they did look very similar.
So whatever. Back to the actual film we're talking about right now. So the boys are getting ready for the Halloween party. Gilly and Digby, they're having a heart-to-heart about the town because Digby just came back and whatever.
He's been back from the city. Thought the city was going to be great, but then realized it wasn't really for him.
But Digby is all excited because he's gonna. He met some girl up in town that he wants to bring to the Halloween party. So whatever, they're all having a heart-to-heart. The girls are getting ready for their dresses. The three girls, Julia, Nancy, and then Popham's daughter, whose name is Lally, I think. Lolly, who has a crush on Gilly.
Lolly Joy.
Who has a crush on Gilly. So that they're just like fixing dresses. They fixed Lally Joy's dress.
Yeah, because Lolly Joy comes in and she's like, I can't go in this. Yeah. And then she opens her coat up, like a trench coat, white coat, opens it up and they see it and they're like, oh. She's like, my mom made this.
So then
and they're like, we can make some changes.
Yeah, they just start like ripping it off of her.
Let's just start all over.
So, but it's at this point, I didn't actually write this down.
I have to say though, if you go and watch this movie, I don't know how the mom would have picked those colors out together, other than they were just trying to make the most hideous looking dress they could, so that way the girls had something. So it was like a light lime green dress with like burgundy maroon sash and bows. Anyway,
so and then they're still getting ready for this for the Halloween party. Nancy's like bringing something out and she runs into this guy this random guy that we haven't seen before, who's just like driving his fancy car by the house. And she like bumps into him, and she's and then instantly starts opening up the whole, like, she just like opens up about how, like, oh, we're staying in this house, Mr. Hamilton's staying in this house, we're having a party for Mr. Hamilton's mother, please come. And she just invites this stranger dude to come to this party. And he's like, I have to go talk to my friend first or whatever, so he leaves. And that's that guy, like, well, who knows who that guy is. So then that young stranger guy goes to Mr. Popham's store and reveals himself to be, obviously, Mr. Hamilton, if you didn't see that coming. And he's like, you gave someone permission to live in my house without telling me.
You gave my house away?
And so he's busted. This is where Popham's like, I wrote you letters, I just never mailed them because I felt bad for the family. And, you'll learn to love them. Stuff like that. So then, busted. But so then it cuts to the Halloween party, and the three girls are showing off their lovely party dresses. Lally is going with Gilly. Julia is going with the creepy teacher guy. And Mr. Bryant. And then Nancy is upset because she doesn't have anyone to go with. So she storms back to her room, and then she talks to her mother about how she doesn't want to go to the party because she has nobody to go with, and all of her friends are going with these guys, some age appropriate, some aren't.
We don't know that.
So then her mother was like, oh, it's gonna get worse right now. Her mother is like, oh, but you can go with your brother, and she's like, no, I'm not going with my brother, blah blah blah. And then,
which brother's she gonna go with?
Must have been Peter. Remember,
well, that's
she
what
said
I was
that.
saying.
Yeah.
Like, is she gonna go with Peter because Gilly's already taken?
So then, and even Digby's going with some other girls. So like everybody's got somebody except
Peter
for her.
was an adorable little boy. I really don't know how they put those three kids together as being siblings.
That haircut, man. All right, so
after he got his haircut,
so then the mother's like, look, we did all this work for this party. At least go to the party. So she's like, all right, fine. She goes down the stairs, and who's waiting for her but the handsome stranger, Mr. Hamilton?
And her shoe falls off.
Hold on, before we get there,
and Cinderella style.
This dude,
because she gets everything.
Okay, yeah. So we'll say that. Mr. Hamilton is waiting for her and her Cinderella shoe. But
she don't know who it is yet.
She has no idea who this dude is. He's just some dude who's like wants to take her there. So this dude is either a very young landlord or creepy dudes just love high school girls in this film, because this guy.
It was the 1890s, 1900s. It probably was.
Oh yeah, it's then. Okay. Yeah, deepdive.pod@gmail.com if it was okay. But either way, this guy.
We don't know how old Nancy was.
She's in high school.
She could be a senior.
And I looked it up. She was 16 when she filmed this film.
That doesn't matter. She could have been playing a 17 or 18-year-old. Anyway, keep going.
So she goes with her dude who she met a half an hour before and who's clearly too old for her.
I thought the same thing.
So, but she has no idea who he is yet. So they go to this party.
What blows my mind is she never thinks to ask his name.
Yeah.
You've seen him how many times now?
Twice.
And
he's
escorting you to a party and you don't bother to ask
escorting to a party that's literally across like the lawn into the barn.
Yeah.
But so at the party, they make this giant speech about Mr. Hamilton, and they unveil this horrendous.
Hang on. Nancy gives this speech about Mr. Hamilton and how he has been so kind as to let them live there and everything, and how great he is. But at one point she said, but that doesn't mean I haven't talked bad about him, because I always worried that he would come back and take this all away. And she called him something, but I don't remember what it was. Yellow something.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's true. And I didn't write this down, but side note.
Yeah.
Side note.
Mm-hmm.
Run with me here. This was a Halloween party.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where Peter was dressed as an angel. Mm-hmm. Remember? Because he was embarrassed to get on stage. But the three girls
weren't dressed up.
They were just wearing different colored dresses.
Nobody else was dressed up at the Halloween party.
Were they Cinderella and the two sisters? Because she lost the shoe.
Maybe, I don't know.
We gotta check the dresses.
Her dress was
colors.
yellow. Her dress was yellow. I
Oh.
don't know. And the other one was like lime green, and the other one, I don't
All right,
remember
well,
what
let's
her
just-
was. Hers blue or
Well,
pink?
either way, so
Anyway,
she makes this whole speech.
Hang on, you interrupted me in the beginning.
Go ahead.
So then
Miss, I think it's okay to date somebody who's way too old when you're in high school.
I didn't say that.
Go
I
ahead.
said I thought the same thing. Anyway, so she gives her little spiel about Tom, and then she talks about how they're there to honor his mother because that was his wishes, and they're going to reveal this beautiful portrait of his mom, and they weren't going to leave it in the barn, but they're going to find a place, a very special place to put it up because that was his wishes.
Because it was in the stove at first.
Yes. And so she says, and we got this photo of his mom out of the oven.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, out of the oven.
So we didn't really touch on
And
this.
Tom keeps looking over at Popham like, a picture of my mom. And he's like, how is your mom? She's fine.
Yeah, she basically. So I'll get there on this, but we didn't talk about
The 3 paintings he
the
chose
paintings.
from.
Yeah, they were like scandalous pictures. Scandalous for the time period pictures. And like his wife like walked in like, "What are you doing? You need
Yeah,
to go to
it's the
church.
Sabbath.
You need to go to church."
What are you doing with
So then he finds this like stereotypical witch-looking picture of
No.
a lady, but
At first, his wife goes, surely the only honorable one to hang up would be this one. And she kept dusting it
Yeah.
off. I thought it was a man. And then when she dusted it off, obviously it's
Mm.
an older woman. And then she told this like historic tale about how this woman saved the lives of everybody on the ship. She went down with the ship,
Mhm.
but everybody else was saved. And something about rum runners or something. I don't know.
Massachusetts.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I can give them a hard time for these dudes being old, but in that scene that you were just talking about, when he's like, my mother, and then Popham's like, how is your mother? And she's like, she's really good. She bought the house in the Hamptons or whatever. That's why I got this house. So like clearly he's not super old, but still he's too
Yeah.
old to be. He's a
But
landlord.
she
He's
would
too old.
would never live here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they unveil this picture of this.
After Peter had
Of
to light
this-
some lights on it, and I was
Yep.
for some reason I was totally expecting the thing to catch on
So
fire.
so they unveil this fake portrait of this fake mother. Hamilton is clearly upset, and he like walks away from Popham.
No, his face, and and then Popham's wife walks up and is like, "Oh, she was a great woman."
Yeah. That's because she was drinking. So that's also something. So like Popham's brother is just randomly there, and he's like, oh, this party's gonna be lame or whatever, and he's just like pouring alcohol.
He's like, "What's wrong with you?" And Popham's like all nervous about
Yeah.
everything he's done to lead to this
Yeah.
point.
Well, no. So he's pouring alcohol like into his drink, and then Popham, who got caught because
Yeah.
Homeboy is there, is like super nervous. So he like gives him like he pours alcohol like into the cup for the guy,
Yeah.
and then he doesn't drink it. He gives it to his Lord loving Sabbath fearing wife, who then drinks it, who then has to be like, oh, she was a great woman because she was drunk.
Yeah.
But either way, so this dude like storms off from Popham, and you're like, oh no, he's gonna blow the spot. Like it's game over. And then he goes up to Nancy, and then it's at this point that he's like, I am Mr. Hamilton, and we're like, uh-oh.
No, she was like, "I never got your name,"
Yeah.
and he was like, "Tom
Yeah,
Hamilton." She went, "Hamilton."
yeah.
Tom Hamilton. That sounds familiar. Actually, it was more like, that sounds familiar.
So then they realize who he is, and they're like, uh-oh.
As he's like,
Yep. So then, and then he just,
in
In-
relation
instead
to
of-
the Tom Hamilton, he's like, the Tom Hamilton.
so then he, instead of like blowing her spot, just asks her to dance.
Yeah, she's like, so what are you going to do? And he's like, I'm going to dance with you.
And then they start dancing, and
The end.
the film ends. Game over.
We don't know what happens.
Mhm.
We don't know how old he was.
Oh, he was old.
Tom Hamilton?
Yeah, he was probably in his 30s. We're talking about how much he looked like Cody
No.
Rhodes.
He did look like Cody Rhodes. If you watch wrestling now, you know who we're talking
Yeah.
about.
But either way, the end. That's how it ended. Um,
I don't know. I mean,
do you have any thoughts or ratings or trivia about?
I kept wondering myself. I mean, obviously, when you look the stuff up, it doesn't always tell you how old the characters are.
Old enough.
So obviously, she had to be in high school at least, and he had inherited this. But I mean, they could have put him at any age if his dad was like, "Well, the house is yours now because your mom doesn't want to live in Beulah." But he was also supposed to be traveling, supposedly like in staying in China or something. I don't know. So, I mean, I would assume he was
Old enough.
old enough to work and probably also around the same age as the other guy, but I guess it's maybe a little bit more okay because he's not going to be her teacher. I don't know. I
No,
was
it's not okay. All the girls in Beulah clearly like dudes that are too old for them. But either way,
no,
do you have any?
Lolly Joy liked Gilly, and he was the correct age.
It's true.
Gilly, Lolly, and Gilly.
Do you have any
What do you think
facts or
Gilly stood
ratings?
for? Gilbert.
I mean, I don't know. The other kid's name was Digby.
The other son's name is Peter.
Yeah.
Nancy, Peter, and then you got Gilly, so it had to be Gilbert. I don't know. Anyway, um, so just a fun little fact. Haley Mills has gone on record to say that this was her least favorite film of all the Disney films that she ever was filmed under her contract.
I mean, she was in
Maybe-
Pollyanna.
maybe-
Ugh.
Yeah, maybe she felt wronged by the age gaps in this movie. I hope you don't spit your drink out. So
Mhm.
anyway, so ratings here. I gave it a 6 out of 10. I mean, it wasn't terrible.
Yeah.
The age gaps were creepy.
Mhm.
IMDb gave it a 6.9 out of 10.
Yeah. I mean,
But it does not Pollyanna its way on my list.
no. So then what is your list?
So no Summer
What
Magic for
list
my
are
list.
you glad about?
So my list is 101 Dalmatians, The Parent Trap, Sleeping Beauty, Dumbo, Lady and the Tramp, The Three Caballeros, Moon Pilot, The Shaggy Dog, Peter Pan, and Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, so I wanted to like this film. There was parts of this film that I enjoyed. There's definitely some Haley Mills films that I enjoy, which are on my list. We already talked about, but I don't know. Forget the age gap. It just was an odd film. I don't know. It was fun, I guess. Summer Magic.
I felt like it left off with a conclusion that
No, it was wide
was
open.
just not fulfilled.
So either way, my list upon a star is staying the same. It is 101 Dalmatians, Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, Babes in Toyland, Pinocchio, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, The Sleeping Beauty, Lady and the Tramp, Swiss Family Robinson. So, kind of like the ending of this film, we're just going to end this film now, and I'm just kidding. Just kidding. We're not going to end this right now.
We're not even going to take it out.
So,
The end.
the end. Have a nice day. No, so thanks for hanging out with us. Again, you know where to find us: Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, Deep Dive in the Magic Pod at gmail.com. Let us know about the age gaps in Beulah. And but for our next film, we are going over to November of 1963 for the 67th film on our journey.
Mhm.
Speaking of journey, I did not do that on purpose, but I just tied it perfectly. The next film that we're doing is called The Incredible Journey. Kind of like this incredible journey that we're on right now.
Yeah.
Will we make it? Will they make it? We'll find out.
Thanks for deep diving the magic.
Bye.
Bye.